This is the Infinite Receiving podcast, helping conscious leaders tap into a wealth of abundance across all areas of your life and business. I'm Susie Ashworth, and I'll be sharing with you how you can upgrade your reality through quantum transformation, because you are ready for infinite receiving. I am super excited to have you listen to this conversation with pop star Starling. I have known Starling for a number of years now. She actually first came into my world as a client, and hearing her story to really owning herself and creating and living this dream as a pop star is one thing. Hearing how she interweaves this with the mentoring of other creatives is something else. I think what I loved most about this conversation is that hearing her talk about her story and everything that she has overcome in order to get to where she is, and hearing her talk about where she is going was so deeply affirming. She didn't know it as she was saying it, but I got quite emotional during this conversation several times because she was saying to me exactly what I needed to hear. And I really know that because of the level of generosity and openness that she had when it comes to the tools that she uses and the things that have supported her, I know that this is going to be a wildly valuable podcast, and I cannot wait for you to dive right on in. So I'm going to zip it and you can get on with it. Hello, you gorgeous human being. It is Susie Ashworth here, and I am super excited to welcome you to this episode of the Infinite Receiving podcast. And as you know, I like to have the best of the best of the best on when it comes to my guests, and I have got a goodie for you today. I want to introduce you to my friend, pop star extraordinaire. Starling is in the house. How you doing?
I love that intro. I'm doing so amazing. But every time you sing, Susie, I'm doing even better.
Oh.
And the seagulls, I live near the sea, as you know, they've come out to sing as well. The minute that you sing, I just love it. And I know I'm not the only one. I literally live for your singing.
Oh, bless. Well, look, when a pop star tells you that they live for your singing, you know that you're doing something right. Like, I feel like I'm living. I am living now. So thank you.
It's your joy and the commitment, to the word podcast. I'm like, yes, babe.
Iconic, I think, is the word.
Thank you. Literally. My favourite word. We'll get on to that. We will.
I would love, it is many young women, young children's dream to be a pop star when they're older. It's like, I want to be a pop star when I grow up. You are living the dream. And I'm curious, when did you know that you wanted to do this for a living?
Oh, I love this question, Suze. There's a couple of parts to it. I'm going to say it's late 90s. Jerry Halliwell in the Union Jack dress. I'm about to drop the word, the Spice Girls. And it was something about, I had a really crazy upbringing. We might get into it, but there was something about the hope that band brought me. And maybe it was just because it was the first CD, because I'm in the, child of the 90s. Is it because it was the first CD that I bought? Is it because it was so empowering? I don't know. There was something about the colours. Even now, I will still wear my version of a Spice Girls outfit. So absolute fan. That was the birth of this passion. But the crazy journey, and I'm not sure if you know about it, because we should tell everyone we've worked together extensively. The Freedom Experience, which was a previous program of yours, changed my life, and we can go into that. But I don't know if you know that I didn't believe I could sing. So I ended up, my parents got divorced. It was really acrimonious, and I ended up learning poetry and speaking and acting, and ended up going to a drama school and getting a scholarship, and kind of thought, well, I'm going to be a Shakespearean actress. Okay, bear with me. And what ended up happening is I would audition, Suze, for these musicals, right? That's what you do as an actress. You might be in a musical theatre show. And they said, you don't have a voice. But what they really meant was you don't have a musical theatre voice, which I don't. I never will. And so the reality, or the meaning I made rather of that, was different to the reality. And the meaning I made was, I'm not a good singer. Add to that, I'm one of 6 kids, and they all say, shut up, Hattie. That was my nickname. Shut up. Because I'm singing all the time as a kid. That was my source of joy, just like you might sing the word podcast. Like, it's just, something I have always done. But of course I was told, you can't sing, you're annoying in your family for singing, and you didn't get any musical theatre roles. So this whole kind of storyline for me was like, no, you can't have that. Anyway, ended up training as an actress, going to one of the best drama schools, graduating at 21, 22. I went back to the bar job that I had in my gap year or whatever, didn't go to Hollywood. And I'm in this bar job, and I'm actually there for 7 years, and I meant to be there for 7 months. And I'm going at it with the acting. I started to think, maybe I could just sing. Maybe I should just do that. The minute I decided to sing, I got discovered by Sia's band and Massive Attack, which is also were a big band. And that was how I got a record deal within 6 months of singing.
So how old were you when you got your record deal?
27. It's late for the music world. It's late for entertainment.
Yeah. How
after
was
25
that?
they start to go, oh, better lie about your age. It was amazing, but there was already this clock ticking. I mean, it depends if we want to go into ageism in the industry, but there was already this clock ticking vibe that I had of, fuck, Starling, and Starling was given to me as well by the person who ran the bar, the mafia ran the bar, and this Soho bar that I worked in for 7 years. And they called me Harriet Starling Darling, and then Starling stuck when I got the deal. And yeah, it felt amazing, but it also started to play on my mind that, I wasn't the youngest in the room, right? Because a lot of musicians start at 17 or whatever, and they get signed by, 20, 25 maybe. Even that's late. Yeah.
So you got signed by Massive Attack, or found by Massive Attack. Tell me that story. How did they find you? What was set the scene for us?
So the real story, I don't know if you've heard of a band called 07.
Yes,
07
I
was
love
Sia's
them.
first band. Did you remember that? Yeah, so they're a bit before my time, but being a dancer and actor, we'd sort of do movement to them. But they were part of that trip hop scene, and Mashiba and that whole world.
Yeah.
And when I'm working in this bar, what I should also say to everyone is that, just so there's some context, it was a private members club like Soho House. It was called Blacks, but it was an independent like Soho House, but not multiple. And of course, what happens is you get the same people coming in all the time, but also you create relations, or I created relationships. So I got paid to kind of not just make the drinks, but to actually make sure, let's say you came in, that you would then meet a film director, or let's say there was an actress that came in alone, that she then meets a friend. It's quite a different bar, I should explain. But additionally to that, of course, you're getting celebrities in every day. That's normal because it's a members club in Soho. So anyway, one night, to paint the picture, I stand up on a table, there's candles, there's fireplace, there's this and that, and I sing, and my friend plays the ukulele. Now, I should add, the night before I have a dream, that I sing around a fireplace and people like my voice. And I'm shaking, my cheeks are red, I dream all of that. And all of that's true. I'm very nervous, thinking, oh my God, if I sing, they'll be able to tell I'm nervous. I always had an issue with stage fright. Anyway, so I'm standing on this tabletop with candles. It's very beautiful. It still exists if you can get in. It's a great club. And there's no lights. It's just candlelight fireplaces, very Georgian, very Dickensian. And there's a guy in the audience called Henry. And I didn't realize that he was one half of 07. And when I got down off the table, he said, you come to my studio in the morning. I had no idea who he was. So here I am behind the bar, YouTubing 07. Didn't even know how to spell it right. 07. And then I realized, oh,
you're a big deal.
So the next day, I get the tube, right, here I am. I'm in the studio. And then I wrote this song, and it was called Take It Down. And I just never written a song before in my life. I thought, oh, fuck it, just write something. So I wrote about my parents' divorce, which, as I said, was awful. And put it in this song, rummage through your paperwork, put all of this in the song. And he said, yeah, it's really fucking great. Okay, right, I'm going to send this up. And that was it. I got a manager and a record deal within 6 months.
This is quite
pretty much
crazy.
straight away.
I had full body goosebumps when you talked about the dream. And I'm curious,
Yeah.
have you had any other like visions? That because that feels like a premonition. And I wonder if you've had that before any time since.
Multiple times. I feel emotional to say it because it holds me accountable, but I do have a consistent, even though I am now 34, 35, I have this dream that I will tour the world with a guitar, and yet I've only learned guitar in the last 12 months. So it feels
Wow.
like, oh God, I've held myself accountable to being older, learning an instrument. But the truth is, every time I play guitar, I know that that's inevitable. And my first show actually is in 10 days, where it will be solo in London with a guitar. So yeah, there's things that are coming through for me. But for me, Suze, a lot of this is working through stories, and I know you're the queen of that. Working through stories that aren't real, don't serve you, but for whatever reason, like my story right at the beginning about musical theatre, that was nothing to do with the fact that I couldn't sing. It was that I could. It's like saying you can't sing opera. No, I can't sing opera. I can't sing musical theatre, but my voice has an individual tone. The story I made that mean is I'm not good enough. And of course, that was my sort of wound that I sort of brought in to the industry. And then that's why I feel so passionate and so appropriate to mentor musicians and to mentor creatives around this good enough wound, because business is healing. When you put yourself out there, you evolve. You are healed by being an entrepreneur, because it is so, I don't know about you, I can only speak for me, it's so triggering to put yourself out there, to be open to rejection. But then that is the gift. That is the gift, is the fact that you get healed through exposure therapy, through being brave, and through holding that vision. So yeah, I'm definitely moving up at this point, but it's been quite a ride, I would say, for sure.
It is quite remarkable hearing you talk like this because, as you mentioned, our connection came when you decided that you wanted to work with me. And one of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome, or biggest stories that you had to overcome, was that it wasn't okay for you to be a mentor and a pop star. It was either or. And if you had to pick, of course, you were going to pick being a pop star because that was your dream. And so to hear you talk about why you're so passionate about mentorship and how business is healing, like it actually brings tears to my eyes, because that is so markedly different from the story that you came into my world with, which was it's not okay to be all of you.
I think the thing is, Suze, it's exactly that. But I also wasn't ready to be the outlier, like already being told to lie about my age, already feeling like, oh God, maybe I'm the freak wanting to help people, or if people really knew my story. I mean, I was doing things like Vipassana from the age of 21. And if anybody's like, oh, what's that? It's where you're 10 days in silent with no one, no book, no phone, no nothing, 10 hours a day of meditation in like some random place in Wales. Like I was already obsessed with personal growth and how to heal all this trauma that I'd experienced as a kid, that it was almost like, oh, I couldn't possibly tell the world that, so I'll hide behind the costumes or whatever it was. And actually, I've also not really explained to anyone, and particularly not you or your audience, why I actually quit acting. And that was another thing that makes me want to cry, where I decided I didn't want to be anybody else. And for me, acting, I'm not saying it's like that for all actresses, but it was about wearing someone else's costume. And I didn't want to wear costumes anymore. I wanted to be me. And my version of me was singing songs about my experiences. So I quit the acting. Yes, I'm still a performer, but I would argue, sorry, the seagulls are going for it right now. I would argue the performance that I give now as Starling isn't a performance. It is my megaphone, if you like, through song of my story of overcoming what I'm always trying to overcome. So for me, music is the pathway to truth. And it, like the song that you got for your theme tune, like it hits deep when it's put, your story into music.
I'm curious, did you see the level of success? Did you have the same drive for the acting as what you do for the singing? Or was it always a placeholder for what you should be doing now, what you are doing now?
Honestly, between you and me, there was always a drive to be famous because I didn't love myself. So I thought by being famous, this is obviously I've worked through this in my therapy and my coaching, but I thought if people love me, somehow I'm going to be happy. And as I got closer and closer and closer, I mean, when I say I've worked with everybody, I mean, Eminem has had my song on hold. Like, I still haven't gone global. There's still more for me to do. But like, I've had some extraordinary moments. And what I was very enamored by was some of the joy in those moments. But one of the things I was very disappointed by is it didn't fill the void. And I was always told that it wouldn't. But I had this part of me thinking, it will, and you get X amount of followers, it just doesn't. And I think the more you can fall in love with yourself, the more then you'll fall in love with your career for the right reasons. And my career right now feels, I wouldn't say it's healthy. I'm overly obsessed to some degree, but I would say it's the healthiest it's been, in that I'm not looking to the fans or the followers to give me that love. I've got that love for me, and they're just the cherry on the cake. I'm the cake, if you like, and they're just the lovely decorations.
I love that. And I use that analogy so much in my book that's what it's about.
Oh,
Our creativity. I think that by our very nature of being a human being, we are born to create. So whether it is acting or singing or business or art or whatever it is, that is in our DNA. We're programmed to want to evolve. We're programmed to want to find our maximum potential, our optimum potential. And each one of us is programmed in a slightly different way. And part of your programming is performing. And how beautiful it gets to be to just enjoy performing for performance sake. How beautiful it gets to be to just enjoy, to push yourself, to see how far you can go with your craft, just to see how much you can create, and everything else is about
for pleasure, Suze.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same with coaching. So I know there's a lot of coaches that listen. And of course, that's also half my career. It's like, it's for the pleasure of helping that person. It's for the pleasure of giving that talk. I've got a big talk coming up in London. It's like a 6-hour thing that I'm giving in September, for the pleasure of that, rather than for the bottom line, or the pleasure of singing rather than how many more fans can I get. And I think that's the thing that we all have to be aware of. I think that an obsession with growth is to some extent, goals. They keep for me, they keep me in a lane, and I need to be in that lane, and I need to be directed. But the slight shadow of them is the enoughness. Like, I'm enough, it's enough, and yet I can want more. But where we can all get a little bit, slimy, is when we are constantly on to the next thing without that appreciation piece. That's something I've been working on.
So you said earlier on is that you use your singing to amplify who you are, but also to help you get over what you have been overcoming. And I'm curious, what did you mean by that? What have you been overcoming?
I think, I might get a bit emotional. I think the worst thing that ever happened to me was my childhood. And I think the best thing that ever happened to me was my childhood. I think when you're around addiction and violence and you don't know what you're going to come home to or whether you are going to be hit, it creates the nervous system isn't regulated, to use our kind of coach language. Everyone watching will know what I mean. I didn't feel safe. And of course, if that's your blueprint in the world, it's very hard to feel lovable. It's very hard to feel connected to your instinct. It's very hard to make decisions. And that's ultimately what complex PTSD is. And that's what I've worked through in the last 12 years, is complex PTSD. And I can finally say, I'm sure about the word healed, but I can finally say I'm in an extraordinary place, considering some of those sort of unfortunate events that I sort of survived. Yeah.
So you're one of 6 children. Where do you fall in the 6?
Yeah. The eldest girl. Yeah.
Ooh.
But the eldest was a drug addict. So I felt like the mum, because the eldest boy was a drug addict for most of the childhood. So it was like I was the eldest. But the problem I think that I've that I finally understood, Suze, and this might be helpful that for those listening, is trauma actually isn't the issue. It's the byproduct of trauma. So let's say that you're in a car accident. It's not the accident. It's the fact that your left leg will never be able to run in the way that it used to. And so for me, when I left home, I was then what's called sexually groomed. It's a horrendous thing. It was about 2 years. I didn't realize with an older guy, and the whole thing, when you really look at like the order of events and why these have happened, why was I so mistreated as a young girl? It's the whole stem of it is about lovability. If you don't value yourself, the wrong guy or the wrong person will take advantage because you don't know your true value. And when we really think about my mission, as we know, missions are always connected with pain points. My biggest pain point was not believing in myself. So what is it that I'm now selling? Self-belief. As a mentor, as a pop star, through my songs, through my programs. Don't care whether you buy a program, whether you just download a song. It's all the same thing because I didn't have that belief or that lovability. And then it took me years. I mean, I've kind of caught up time, so it's not too bad. But it took me a good 10 to 15 years of serious work to feel worth something. And I think that's why I'm so good at mentoring and singing, is that I understand what it's like to kind of be in the fire, but I also understand what it's like to come through the other side. And that's, humans are extraordinary how they kind of get through things. Yeah. And come through the other side stronger.
At what age or at what point in your life did you start realizing that you were worth more than what you were, the situations that you were putting yourself in or that you found yourself in?
There's a couple of moments where I remember even one of my first jobs in Body Shop. Do you remember that? The Body Shop? Maybe it still runs. And they asked me to wash the floor.
Can I just say, I always think, how does Body Shop keep going? Because whenever I go past it, there's nobody in there, but it's still limping along.
But do you remember in the noughties or the 90s, everybody had the vanilla spray, like they were thriving. Everybody had the body butter. Yeah.
I do indeed.
So some of my first jobs, which were like a shop girl or a waitress, they asked me to clean. And I remember one time thinking, actually cleaning the floors is probably not part of the job. So I did have awareness. And I remember even at the age of 7, there was some screaming, there was some plate throwing, there was some stuff going on. And I remember thinking, I don't know if this is happiness. I don't know if I want to be an adult, if this is reality. So I was quite an intelligent little girl thinking, God, those people don't seem very happy. So I kind of had a seedling always of awareness, but it wasn't really, to answer your question in a nutshell, it wasn't until age about 25 when I'd found this therapist in the most bizarre way, and I'd spent my student loan on therapy rather than on the pub, and I'd squirreled it away, £35 a week, so he let me have a discount. And that started about age 21 or 22. So by about 25, I'd really started to see that a lot of what happened to me wasn't very normal. And then I started to realize, okay, the missing thing here is not to be famous. The missing thing here is to have a relationship with myself. Yeah.
What does that relationship, like, I am curious about what the start of that looked like in terms of habits and behaviors, perhaps, that you stopped doing because they were no longer in alignment with somebody who was discovering their worth.
Honestly, I wanted to make a massive joke and be like, I stopped sleeping with dickheads.
Yeah. That's so there was that one. I get it.
Literally, mate. I know we have that in common. And also, when you said Pizza Hut on this one like sales week, I don't know what you said. It was a launch. I was like, I have to buy from this woman. She understands, because I also worked as a waitress. Anyway, no, I had this amazing ability, Suze, and again, I know where it came from, to find the only man in Soho that would not be interested in me as a girlfriend, but just wanted to use me. I had an incredible ability in my early 20s to find the one man in London that would not, want anything more. No, I honestly, to answer your question, and I know it doesn't work for everyone, but for me, the thing apart from therapy that saved my life is journaling. In fact, I'd love to turn the camera and just show you, but I won't. I've got an entire pink cupboard of about 180 journals for the last 10 to 15 years of my life. And one day I want to write a book, obviously when I'm much older, about that, because every single morning without fail, I would just put down, even if I'm crying, what I'm feeling. And why that was so helpful is if people are listening, they don't have money for therapy or coaching, but they do just want something to change. Their ability to listen to themselves, they're wiser than they realize. Your ability to listen to yourself, even if that's all you can do for a moment, just to journal, just to lay it down, no judgment. That page won't be judgmental. That page won't say, I've had enough now. It's an endless ear. And I guess that's one of my dreams, is to have some, I don't know, journaling stationery thing when I'm older, because I would love to provide books for people where they can feel like they can come home. So yeah, I would say I started with journaling. I would say I started therapy a lot younger than my friends. I'm now mid-30s, but I would say I started a lot younger, but that was because I was suicidal. I wouldn't probably have lasted much longer than about 23 or 4 without the help of this particular therapist. Things were pretty bad. And I got into certain things, and yeah, it was a pretty tough early 20s. Late 20s, I was healing. And now this time in my life, in my 30s, is all about clarity. There's just clarity coming through what I'm offering, who I am, the relationships I want. Yeah, that's coming through now.
What's interesting, when I speak to you, you can tell you've done so much work, because you can tell that you've processed a lot, because you're mentioning really huge things like, oh, can I take I'll have 2 spoons of sugar in my tea. Like, it's very like matter of fact. So when you say that you were almost like the mum of 6 kids, because, or at least 4 kids, if you were the second oldest or the first oldest daughter, and your brother was a drug addict, like, that's a really big deal. And I'm curious about that sense of responsibility that I am sure that you felt potentially towards the others, and how that has impacted you, how that impacts you even today. Was it that you needed to dive right in? Was it that it was too much for you to handle? I'm really curious about that. And I'm curious about you being like, oh yeah, I was almost suicidal, and if I hadn't met that therapist at that time, then
I'd be out of here. Yeah.
Those things are huge.
I think I have to be careful, Suze, in a lot of my music interviews. Not that this isn't a music interview, but I'm aware of our audience now, and they have done work, and they're holding space, and they're coaches. I think I have to be careful with how throwaway I am around, being abused, or the violence, or the grooming, whatever, because I say it, as you've just pointed out, like it's nothing. But what's so crazy to me is it kind of is. Like, it is, on a down day, or maybe I've not had enough sleep, I do think about things and I think, oh, that's so sad. But it's really nothing more than that. And I've not spiritually bypassed. I have been in a therapy room. I've literally, like, my life and I'm not joking, like, I needed it like oxygen, that I knew the gateway to freedom was to go back in and go to the darker corners, because that has given me such a powerful sense of freedom, of light. And so it is kind of just like, oh, that just happened because it just did. I don't want to be a victim of it, but equally it is the reason. Like I said, it's the worst thing that ever happened to me and the best thing that ever happened to me. Like this grooming and stuff. I mean, it is an unbelievable thing to happen, but then that is what gives me the compassion to hold space for creatives who have a lot of trauma. That's why they're so creative, but also to hold space for myself when I'm, trying to write the best song, or I don't know, I see work, as I say, as healing and as a pathway just to express. Because I think when I speak my truth, people will be like, oh my God, me too. It's that thing, isn't it? When you are fully using your communication vessel, it makes people feel less alone. And that's one of my other missions, because I often felt alone. So it's like, oh my God, we're in this together. Don't worry, like, you will get through this, or whatever. To answer your question around responsibility, to be honest, Suze, it wasn't an option for me to crumble. It was just survival. It didn't feel like an option to me. I had to be on high alert. I had to achieve. I had to hold the house together. One of the parents who I was left with, because my dad was gone, she couldn't cope. So it wasn't an option for me to break. It wasn't an option for me. What I would say now in my 30s, though, if I'm really honest, now that I'm coming off adrenaline and I'm really working with my nervous system and all the things that I do to take care of me, I really do experience collapse in a way that I never was allowed to as a 12-year-old. So if you're thinking, what are the repercussions? If you know, like Gabor Mate's work and all around the body and somatics, I'm quite obsessed with that at the moment because I've sort of got into weightlifting, which I love, I'm toning up, getting married next year. My body's looking great. But what I'm noticing is obviously exhaustion from that. And I'm like, why is that triggering, right? Like, what's the little trailhead? And the trailhead is that little girl that couldn't say no. So again, on one hand, it was brilliant because I became a machine, if you like I could just, anything that you ask me to do, I'll do it, like completely capable. But the shadow side of that is a child that is parentified and a child who doesn't have her needs met has a lot of problems later on in life. Or like my sexual stuff, that's still not really great, even years on of help in that department. So, things aren't flawless, but the point is I'm not looking for flawless. I'm just looking to carefully unravel some of this stuff, but then also to then turn it into art, but also, of course, behind closed doors, just nurture those parts that weren't nurtured.
I am really curious about what you feel are some of the bigger blockers for the kind of creatives that you work with, really stepping forward and being able to. I think there's a part of me that thinks it's around freedom, because I feel like part of the work that you have done is to free yourself up enough to be able to speak and create freely. And I think that that's the thing that connects with people. There's a different tone of authenticity that people are able to connect with when you're more full of yourself. And so I'm curious about what are the things that stop the types of creatives that you work with really breaking through?
So, Suze, there's a concept that my different therapist actually introduced me to called the bottom line. Have you heard of that concept? It's all to do with your bottom line. No, neither had I. I don't know where it's from, what modality, but anyway, the point is she was explaining, Starling, your bottom line is that you're a failure. You're not good enough. And because that's my story, if you want, or bottom line, anytime a launch fails or anytime a person or a song doesn't do well or a person rejects me, there's a real opportunity for me to go back to my bottom line. And she was saying, actually, I've noticed because of your unrelenting standards in your childhood, your bottom line is basically that you're a failure. And so the reason I'm bringing this up now is not really about my example, but it's for all my artists. And when I say artists, I'm not just helping singers, I'm helping creative coaches, even some female leaders that are influencers, right? What is it that they all have in common? Why are they coming to me, or why indeed are they not where they want to be? Because they believe their bottom line. And their bottom line is a belief made up way before, and you know all this stuff, way before age 7, 8, 9. Yeah. And it's just a series of events, like if their dad left, like the meaning I made of that is I'm unlovable, and then slept with all these awful men as a adult, when actually he didn't not love me. The marriage just broke down. So the meaning that we make of an event not only creates the pain, but it also creates the story blueprint for then every opportunity for you to go, I'm right. See, I'm right. I'm unlovable. See, I'm a failure. And of course, what we have to do, and this is why, for the most part, although people come to me for strategy, for the most part, they know I can go under the hood. And what we really need to do is go, what's your bottom line then, singer, artist, painter, whoever you are? What's your bottom line? Because your bottom line is what you're believing, and then you won't send that email. And you won't get on that stage at the open mic night. And so there are multiple examples I could give you of what my clients are going through. But the truth is, in a nutshell, they believe their own BS. And bless them, of course they do, because they weren't told that story isn't true. Just like I wasn't told, no, you're not a failure. Actually, quite the opposite. But of course, my inner child and everything believes what she tried to make sense of chaos as a child.
Yeah, I really hear this. And I'm curious about the tools that you use. Once awareness, you can't have transformation without awareness. Everything starts with awareness. And then I'm curious about the tools, and I'm thinking, actually, we're going to be playing with each other in October, because you're going to come and do the Infinite Receiving Coaching Certification.
Those are my tools, honey.
Yeah.
Certification, baby.
A whole new raft of tools. But I'm curious, what do you use now already to support your clients once you're able to shine this light on what their bottom line is? Where do you go
You got it.
then?
Absolutely. So I'm trained, I don't know if you've heard of internal family systems,
Yes.
IFS, part work. So I'm trained part work therapist, if you like. And that's what saved my life, was realizing it wasn't me that was suicidal. It was a part of me that thought, I can't take this pain
Yes.
anymore. So when I tipped out with my little Russian dolls, if you like, but I don't even know if that's a PC phrase anymore, but you know, the little different parts of me, different ages, I realized I needed to lean in with that self compassion. So instead of trying to exile that part of me that doesn't feel lovable and get rid of her because she's a pain to my pop star persona, instead, if I could lean in and say, hey, honey, what's going on? I mean, I had a part this morning, I had to journal quite a lot this morning. What's going on for you? Oh, there's so much pressure. Okay, what age are you? Oh, I'm like 7 and I can't do this anymore. And so she's got the voice that she never had. And I'm the listener. I'm the parent I never had for her. I mean, I had parents that were doing their best, but there was a lot of a lot of problems there. So I am that person she never had. So I'm trained in IFS, so that's probably my first port of call. Unfortunately, it works for the most part, but when you're really dealing with the physical and people cannot get on stage, or they know they've got talent, but they're frozen in nerves or whatever, I have a whole system called the green room ritual. And the green room ritual is getting you to stamp, to shake. It's very physical, because the bottom line is we can't think ourselves out of fear. We can't think
Yeah.
ourselves out of fight or flight. So my nervous system, like, regulation tools, and my stamping and my tapping and my this and that, is the physical, and the mental, if they've got sort of one-to-one with me, is the IFS. And then beyond that, as an umbrella, is just the process of, I call it essence work, but it's a process of self inquiry. And I find the best
Mm.
artists are those that are interested in themselves. And so when they go through those questions, they go through the physical stuff and they go through part work, they realize there really isn't a problem. They just never became interested enough to see what's going on, slow down enough, and then they get to go, okay, this is where I'm at. And actually, I'm ready to show people who I am.
I've just got the biggest smile on my face because I understand why you resonate with the infinite receiving method, because it's the neurological, it's the emotional and the spiritual, and it's the somatic. And actually,
Yeah,
I really firmly believe the more I work with people and the longer that I've worked with people, you need to hit all three areas for long
100%.
lasting and sustainable transformation. And the other thing that I hear from you is that you still are in the work, you still honor your process. And it is always, I think that for a long time when I first started this work, I would hear
Mm,
people, and still sometimes me, for the want of a better word, will talk about letting go and releasing. And letting go and releasing, from a mental perspective, it makes sense. But actually, it's the integration is what it is that 99.9% of the time we are looking to do. Maybe it's the letting go of the story that actually, or letting go of the meaning that we gave it, but the part of ourself that feels the hurt, the part of ourself that creates the frustration because they don't know what to do, we're not letting go of that. We are integrating that part of
yeah.
ourselves. So I I hear you, and I love this. I love this for your clients, and I love how much deeper it also gets to go with
Yeah,
them.
I'm so excited for the certification, and I'm so excited to have new training. I'd also like to add why I've chosen it, and it was based not just on us working together in freedom and I got a 6-figure business. I can tell everybody about that, but it was actually the words infinite receiving. The reason is just from my studies, and some listeners, I know you'll know this, probably know this, but I just want to share it, that when you have a lot of trauma or you've survived a lot of traumatic events, one of the key things that happens to you is you don't know how to receive because you feel worthless. And so famously, and you can read the studies, if you Google the under earning syndrome, you will find multiple people have the under earning syndrome is connected to what traumas are unresolved. And so as I've been working through that, and I was very, very poor in my 20s, as you know, and then I met you. I mean, I was building to you, but then when I met, it was a real breakthrough with you. Is now that I'm entering richness or wealth or abundance, for want of a better word, for me, it's just the tip of the iceberg of my ability to receive love, money, compliments, opportunities, relationships. And so for me, that title was like, if I could be certified in that, it will help those people with the under-earning syndrome, which often people that come to me, they don't know they have it, but they have it. And it also helps me on a personal level.
If I was obsessed with you before, I'm even more obsessed with you now. I get it.
And I love you. You get it, yeah.
What's so interesting is that, actually the first person to present infinite receiving was a woman called Maru
That's right.
who's an incredible human. And when she first said to me, Susie, I feel like my time with infinite receiving is done. Do you want it? I was like, no. But then the words would not leave me, and the words hold their own very specific frequency that when you speak them, when you hear them, there's a resonance that moves throughout your entire body. Immediately, it starts to shift things. And when you put the tools alongside the intention of that frequency, magic can happen. And hearing everything that you just said, like, it makes it even more special, even more powerful, even more potent. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to hear this as your motivation and to really help you fulfill on this part of the mission, which is really big. What are you most excited about right now? Because there's so many incredible things that are happening in your life.
Yeah, I love this question. Weirdly, Suze, this year, this sounds so unsexy, but fuck it, I'm going to say it. This year has been about systems. It's been such a fucking turn on. I have systems coming out of my ears, mate. I am so efficient. So I'm loving that the platform gets to expand because we've got the fucking systems. Yeah. I'm loving that I've got a way of making records in a most speedy way, but yet deep way. And to answer your question, beyond all of this recalibration, so I just spent a year back and forth to LA. It was amazing, but also really challenging in terms of, flipping a time zone every 6 weeks. And anyway, that's for various reasons, that's just ended, and it feels so right that it's ended and that I get to have like a British team and all this kind of stuff. But the point is, I am so excited about this record that I'm making. I'm actually finishing it tomorrow, and I'm actually making it through Zoom, which is crazy. A producer in Connecticut, and I'm here in Kent. I fucking love it. And it's called The Cool Girl, and The Cool Girl is such an extraordinary song, about fitting in and people pleasing and who we get to be. That it's going to come to people in just literally a couple of months. And so for me, that plus this solo show that I mentioned, it's in about 10 days. For me, it's about the next level of being seen. So I'm excited about going solo with, performing, not just the band, and the guitar, right? But I'm also excited about this record alongside how does the platform get to help people? And that's the birth of the book, and then me doing your certification. And so I don't really know if I could say one thing. I just feel, as odd as this year has been, I mean, it has been, my sister got hit by a car at the beginning of the year. There's been a lot of like really challenging, like odd, but also scary things. I just feel this balance and this certainty and this clarity that what I get to make and I get to release in a couple months' time is going to be just so pure, so purely my essence. And that feels amazing. And on top of that, the platform, which is this, company I have to help mentor and guide people, is going really well, and my team's expanded. So yeah, there's multiple things. I'd say the record feels very fresh.
Oh, I've got tears in my eyes. You're making me feel so emotional. Thank you so much. I'm very, very happy for you. And before we finish up, I've got a few questions I ask everybody, and I would love to ask them to you too. So, I feel like maybe you've just answered this, but I'm going to ask it again. And if anything else comes through, then let me know. What does infinite receiving mean to you?
Oh, thank you for asking this. Because I was going to say, receiving to me is a spiritual act. It's it's having the courage and the openness to receive all the goodness in life. We've touched today on a lot of the badness or a lot of the things that I have found really difficult to overcome. And that's a wonderful topic and conversation. But the other conversation is how much goodness we can be open to. So infinite receiving is like this limitless, abundant, continuous sense of how much goodness, like the best is yet to come, right? I'm always believing in that. And it gets to be better and better and better. Everything that you teach, really, you say that in your phrases. And for me, receiving it takes actually courage, I think. It takes courage to receive a big life. And it takes the bravery to say unconsciously, I'm worth it.
Are you good at receiving infinitely?
I'm not going to say I'm good. I'm going to say I'm better.
Where in your life or who in your life can you allow to love you a little bit more right now?
My fiance, Ed.
Like literally.
You're falling.
I'm just crying.
I find maybe we can do a different podcast on this. I find love a very difficult thing to talk about. And it happens to be that I'm getting married next year, which is what's meant to happen. I feel it in my path. But the truth is, love and sex is something I've had so much, just so much mistreatment around.
Mm.
I would say there's a huge amount of work to do around my heart. And you can get away with not doing heart work when you're a career girl. And I've got away with that for a long time. So my next level of becoming a Jedi, because I'm determined to be a Jedi, is to open my heart in ways that I can't explain.
And I know that we've mentioned this a few times, but I feel like so much of the work that I am pouring into the certification is around the heart work. And what I have experienced personally, and also what I've been taught by Layla Martin through her sex, love and relationship certification, is that love is the healing tool. That is the tool that will activate all transformation across all human beings. And my own experience with the removing of the barriers that I've used to protect my heart for my entire life, which I've used to protect myself in every relationship, including my most intimate relationships, especially the relationship I have with myself, those bars continue to dissolve. And what has been on the other side of those barriers coming down has been a very visceral experience of what it means to love myself. And there have been moments in time where I've been like, oh, it's no longer self-love from a intellectual perspective, but a very full body, visceral, oh, this is what self-love is like. There's a softness with my children that I didn't have before. There is a softness with myself. There is a new level of vulnerability. There's a new level of vulnerability and authenticity that I have in relationship with my ex, with the people that I'm dating. it has been wild. And because the whole of the first segment of the certification is all about work on yourself, I'm so excited for you, because you're going to be in exactly the same way as you in exactly the same way as you communicate the lessons that you have learned through being in therapy yourself, and then how that translates to your clients. You're going to be doing exactly the same. And so I'm excited for you. I'm excited for your fiance, and I'm excited for the world.
I love you so much. Yes, the bravery to love. It is a whole other conversation. And I saw you did the Layla certification. I have a million questions. This is for another moment. But yeah, I honestly, Suze, at this point in my life, and I'm sure it will remain like this for a while, my real work is behind the closed doors. It's behind the sheets. It's in the quieter places that I get to now evolve, and I'm ready to do that.
What is your greatest attribute?
My ability to see like a bird what's really going on and what really needs to happen.
What one thing are you consciously working on manifesting right now?
A world tour.
Where can you allow yourself to be more supported in your life right now?
My business team. I really want a personal chef as well. So I think I need to get one.
We're going to start at least with some HelloFresh, and then, we'll
I've done that. It still takes 45 minutes to cook. It's not the same. Personal chef's going to happen. Next time I'm on the show, I want to be like, hey, Suze, I got the chef.
I got it. This has been such a beautiful conversation, and the only thing I'm sad about is that we need to finish now, because honestly there are so many things that I would just love to dive deeper with you on, so we are going to make that happen. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Absolutely. So it's Starling's World on Instagram. So they can follow my journey, but it's also Starling's World on Spotify. It used to be just Starling. Now it's Starling's World. So all my music is Spotify, Apple, Instagram, you name it. My mentoring and my talks, they're all on jointheplatform.com, JOIN, theplatform.com. And there's lots of free talks, but also if people want to be part of programs, there's information there as well.
You're amazing. I love you deeply. I hope that everybody who is listening to this has loved this conversation as much as I have. If you have, then do me a favor. Please tag me, tag Starling on Instagram, share this with a friend. You've been so generous with your heart and your openness. There are so many golden nuggets in here that I know are going to be so beneficial to people. And I really just invite you to spread the word. And please remember what you are witnessing in this conversation and in Starling's work and in her life and in her eloquence is faith plus action equaling miracles in action. This is it in action. So thank you once again. I love you. You're amazing. Thank you for listening to Infinite Receiving with me, Susie Ashworth. I'd love to share with you my Infinite Receiving activation audio. Go to susieashworth.com/activate infinite receiving.